We talk a lot about spiritual versus material in here. And we also call it, well, I'm going to just go through it. We have a whole list of things. It gets kind of confusing. We call it truth and illusion, cause and effect, divine material, real, false, light, dark, formless, form, infinite, finite, creator, created, essence, ego. So it can get kind of confusing. What's good, what's bad, what are we supposed to focus on, what are we not supposed to focus on? Oh my gosh, where do we go from here? So the other day I was standing out here somewhere, and I heard this noise. It was so loud it kind of startled me a little bit. It was a woodpecker, and you could tell he was quite a ways back into the woods, but he was pounding on something, and I mean, it was just ringing through there, and it's like, whoa. I'm thinking, wow, that sounds like a machine, because it was so perfect. Perfect amount, he'd stop. Do it again, it'd stop. Do it again, and he just over and over and over, but it was the same amount every time. It was rapid fire. So, and it was really cool, and I got caught up in it for a minute. And when the thought about it sounded like a machine came in, I knew at that point, okay, that's mechanical. Don't know why I thought that. Well, I do too know why I thought that. I was given that thought, and it came to me. It was there. It was revealed. It unfolded. See, it gets confusing when you use all these different words. I realized that this was a mechanical thing. And then I had to go figure out what that all meant. So I sat down and I thought about it, and played with it, and just went through it. And I realized that we could make this much more simple, all of these different terminologies, if we thought of two things. One is real. That's the word I'm going to use. You could replace it with spiritual, truth, cause, divine, real, light, formless, whatever fits for you. But this is the column to me that's real. And in that column, there is thought, there is love, and there is feeling. But let me explain feeling. Andy and I had a talk about this the other day. It's not the feeling of if you get a splinter, oh. It's not the feeling of if somebody does something to you and you respond with an emotion. This is the feeling that is a deep, intuitive feeling, that is a knowing, it's a presence in and of itself. That's on the real side. Everything else is mechanical. If we all got it, if all of y'all had spent as much time thinking about this as I had, we could stop right there. But y'all haven't, because you didn't know to do it. Because I didn't tell you to do it. Or it didn't come to you. But anyway. So I'm going to refer to what we typically refer to as spiritual in here. I'm going to refer to that as real. And what we have talked about as material or illusion, I'm going to refer to as mechanical. And hopefully by the end of this, you will understand why I use those words. When we use the word material, we think of it as a word to explain all of the physical things that we see out in the world, the things that we can touch and the things that we hear, the things we smell, that we use our human senses for. But when we see these things in disharmony, it makes us wonder why. It makes us even question God. To me, when I see something awful happen in this world, it's like, well, how can God let this happen? Where was God in all? Those are thoughts that run through people's minds. And I have to admit that sometimes my mind goes there too, even though I know better. We think of it that way. When we consider it as mechanical instead of material, it simplifies things. The reason being, material to me is still seeing that thing as something real. And I'm talking capital R here. Okay? Capital R real. The divine real. I see those things. When I think of material things, I think of all of that because it's easier to think of it as having God presence within. We know that God is everywhere present. So even describing all this gets a little confusing. But we're going to keep going. When we consider that things are mechanical, it makes more sense to me because anything mechanical, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, requires first a thought and then some sort of action before it can do anything. You can have the most beautiful, wonderful, incredible tool in the world sitting on your shelf. But until you pull it down, take it out of the garage, plug it in, give an idea to you to make it do something else and take action, that tool can't do a darn thing. Folks, that's the way this whole world is. It's mechanical. It can do nothing until we give it the thought, till we experience that idea, and then assign some sort of power to it. There's nothing in this world that has any power whatsoever unless we give it to it. As we talk about the mechanical and material world, we must keep in mind that the mechanical world, or material if you want to continue calling it that, is a demonstration of spiritual law. Okay? Here's my disclaimer here. You've got to keep this in mind. Everything we see out there is a demonstration of spiritual law. How does spiritual law demonstrate? Well, it takes the thoughts that are coming from us from the one mind, acts upon them, and gives form. That form comes in the shape of sight, what we can touch, what we can see, what we can hear, what we can smell. So our ideas as thoughts really can't do a whole lot until divine law acts upon them, and then it becomes something that our human senses can understand, can relate to. See, it's mechanical. We have origin and we have creation. We have creator and created. The creator, the origin is the thought. That's God. That's our truth as one in God, as expressions of God. When we break this down, we do, I've already mentioned that the mechanical world or the material world is the things that we can touch, see, hear, smell, that we experience with our human senses. Even those senses are of the mechanical world because they have been created, just as this body has been created. We get confused sometimes. We talk about one mind, or in the mind of God, the mind of spirit. We have to remember that there is a difference between brain, this gray matter in our head, and mind. And one of the ways that we know that there is a difference is science can prove that brain. It can show that brain. Autopsies, there's all kinds of ways you've seen the brain. Nobody has seen the mind. If we even break down our thoughts, nobody can find the origin. They can't prove it with scientific method. They cannot prove where the origin of thought is. Now they can track the journey of a thought as it moves through your brain. Following these synapses, they can see things firing all over the place when a thought runs through your mind. The origin cannot be found. The origin is divine. The origin of all thought 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 is divine. The origin of all thou Now, once it gets into our human senses and we start playing with it, sometimes that divinity is hidden. Sometimes it's hidden a little bit. But all is mechanical. I was talking about the most incredible tool. I saw one not too long ago. It was a car. And the guy and I were walking out, I think it was Walmart, but we were walking out of Walmart, and he pulls his key fob out and hits a button, but I didn't think anything about it. And a second later, I see a car pull out, and it was a real pretty blue color, so it caught my attention. It pulls out, and it's coming down the drive, and anytime it would get anywhere close to somebody, it would stop. Dead stop. It wouldn't inch up, it would just stop. And as soon as that person got very clear, it'd move again. And as it got closer, there's nobody in this car. What's going on? This thing, that's empty. And it comes up and it comes up, and the guy next to me walks around and hops in the driver's side and takes off. That's pretty incredible. But even that required thought. First, it required the engineers to design it. So you had the creators and the created. Then if you just look at that action, that guy had to think to pull that key fob out, hit that button, and then the car came. Creation, created. Creation is the thought. That's the origin. That's the thing that is beyond this material world. The actions, the physical things, the mechanical things are the results. Even these bodies that we live in, they're created. So when we get confused and we think, when we have a hard time trying to figure out how we and God are one, it's not these bodies that we're talking about when I say we. It is our truth. It is that place in our mind that's one with the one mind. That's one with God, that is beyond explanation. There is no origin within this body. The origin is in the infinite existence of God. So the reason I like this mechanical setup here is because for me, it's easier to differentiate between that which is of God, that which is source, that which is cause, that which is creator, and that which is all else, the created, the effects. So when we sum all this up, the only things that are not mechanical, the only things in our life that are not mechanical are our thoughts and those feelings that are down on that intuitive, that deeper knowing level. Okay? So we've got real, our spiritual truths. We are spiritual beings having this human experience. Kind of makes more sense now. And then we've got the mechanical, the material. Now, I'm going to throw another wrench in this understanding thing. We talk about there is no duality. There is only one. There's only unity. And here I am telling you that you got real and you got mechanical. It's still all one. God is everywhere present. But what we have is we have the vision, the dream of God, which is the thought. And that does come through us. And then we've got the experience and the expression of that dream. It's not that there's two different things. It's that it's two ends of the same process. Anything that we create. Same thing, Roxanne's a beautiful example of this with her photography. She has the eye, she has the thought, which uses the eye to capture these photographs that become the created. So every day of your life, You are creator creating. You're divine creating. Same thing for all of us. We all do it. We all do it. All that is created. All that is created. And remember, all creation begins with thought. All that is created is mechanical. Or if we want to go down the list, material, illusion, effect, false, dark, form, however you refer to that side of the that column in the list of things. All that is created is mechanical. All that creates is real, spiritual, truth. So it's two things. So when you're wondering how you can affect what's going on out in the world, it's through your thought. We see all kinds of demonstrations happening right now. Both sides of an argument fighting against each other, yelling and screaming, wanting what they believe is best. And until somebody stops and puts thought to this situation, and they find within their own mind perfect truth, and they believe that and think that, and divine law grabs hold of that and creates that, until that happens, there's not going to be a fix. We try to grab hold of all that's wrong and fix it, beat it into submission sometimes and fix it. It will never happen, because the more we go in there and try to fix it, the more we're focused on what is wrong. See, as creators, we can create perfection because we are one. I don't even have to say in God, because as God is in all things, we are one. We're unity. And God is only capable of creating perfection. So when we use the laws of creation that are available to us through our thought, through our deep intuitive feelings, we too create perfection. The problem with this is if our idea of perfection is the something really, really horrible, we're going to create the perfect, horrible situation. So we've got to get clear. What is good? What is love? If what I'm sending out is not good and love, I'm creating havoc and chaos and horrible situations. So in all that's going on in your life, in this world, you do have the power to create good. I think I've said it in here before, but Kathy and I got to listen to a man speak at a church that we used to go to, and he was part of a a meditation group that all went to Washington, D.C. There's 1,000 of them, and they went to like a community center in the highest crime rate district in the world. And they sat down in that center, didn't tell anybody what was going on. The only people that knew were the people that were inside that room, and they meditated for 8 hours about peace. They didn't try to think about how peace would look out in that neighborhood. They just focused solely on the perfection of peace for 8 hours. During those 8 hours, the crime rate in that district dropped to 0. Nobody in that district knew what was happening inside that room. The crime rate in that district went to 0 for those 8 hours. For something like 72 hours beyond that, it only got up to like 10% of what it had been. And for 6 months, it stayed below 50% of what it had been. That's the power of thought. Because in reality, meditation is nothing more than a focused thought. Thought can be perfect. Thought does have power. Imagine if those people did what they did and then taught the community what they did. Imagine what would be going on in that community now. So, I do have a disclaimer on all of this. Because if you walk out of here thinking that I talked about duality, I did mention it. That's not what I'm teaching. Because all is one. I do not believe that there's any good and evil. I think there's good and there's a misrepresentation of what somebody wanted to do. I think all is good. All is love. God is in all things. And when we connect our thoughts, our pure and perfect thoughts, with the God presence in anything, we will realize perfection in anything. So let's close with prayer, and I hope that made sense to y'all. I get a little excited on some of that stuff. But all right, Father God, knowing divine wisdom, intelligence, and knowledge are infinite, we recognize divine mind is everywhere present. We know this to mean within us as well. Open our minds and hearts to expand our understanding of divine mind. Open our minds and hearts to more fully understand the wisdom, intelligence, and knowledge that is available to us, that is already within us, that is ready for us to use. We are so grateful this divine mind is within and available to us always. Our prayer is that we remember this precious gift and expand our awareness and understanding that we may more fully use it in our lives. We embrace divine mind. We express divine mind. For all this and more, we are grateful. And so it is. Amen.